What's going on, guys? This is Chase with iDub Hockey, hanging out with Dan, who is the product manager for Sherwood Hockey. Dan, we have your new line of code sticks in front of us. This is a big change from what we've seen from Sherwood in the past, from the more, the higher kick point family. So before we start hopping into the really exciting tech and spec we find in this code 5, what was your goal with this new code line? And, what style of player or shooter would you say it's designed for?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having us. We're very excited to be part of your program. The goal really was to make sure that we were bringing elite level product to the market, and we wanted to make sure that we were offering something that was contrasting or variance from what the M90 series had been. M90 being that low kick, sniper stick for the player down low who looks to get it up quick and get it away quick. But we wanted to create a stick that would create max velocity, and a stick that actually a player from the top of the circles or from the blue line could ensure that they were getting maximum accuracy, but have it come off quick and hard. So we looked at various different ways to achieve that. And ultimately we felt that by making a hybrid kick point, that was going to give us the best opportunity. So not a true high kick, but certainly not the low kick that you've seen with the M series and M90. And we put it somewhere in the middle, more of a 17-inch taper to give us that hybrid kick point. So some might refer to it as a mid, but realistically, it's got a little bit of the best of both worlds to it.
Right, because the game today is just so quick that, you don't have time to take a huge slap shot anymore. But like you said, there's that aggressive style shooter that still wants that high-end power too.
You're absolutely right. And when you see the guys with, gain the zone with speed and coming to the top of the circle, and if that defenseman hasn't closed the gap on him, you've got time to load it up and get it away. So how are we going to beat those goaltenders who are so big and out so far? Well, you got to have velocity. You got to have some jam on that when you shoot it. So by creating this taper and this kick point, we feel that we really have achieved that. And some of our independent testing has illustrated that we are coming off hotter than some of our competitors, and we are getting the results that we wanted. So we're super excited about what Code 5 gives us.
Well, obviously this taper is, really the biggest change, or one of the standout features in this new code line. So let's walk me through a little bit of this taper, and how were you able to really achieve that hybrid style kick point that still has that high end speed on it?
Well, ultimately, and I've got a Code 5 here in my hands, but ultimately the geometry is what can dictate your kick point. The layup is what can dictate your kick point, and how you lay those materials and those sheets of carbon fiber in will allow you to create that kick point. But the taper also gives that to you. So we actually have that taper starting at 17 inches from the heel and coming down into the hosel. But in order for us to achieve maximum torsional rigidity and that mid and hybrid kick, we played with the geometry of the hosel as well. And if you look at the hosel of the Code 5 or the Code family, you'll notice that it's significantly different than what you saw in M series or back in the day of our EK365. You've got a much more narrow but wider profile. And what that does is it creates different torsional rigidities, and it also creates a more longitudinal flex. And that longitudinal flex, based on how the layup works, puts it as a more hybrid kick point.
And real quick too, for someone who isn't too familiar with torsional rigidity, why is that so important for you as a shooter?
Think of it, if you've seen slow-mo in the golf industry with the ball coming off the club face, you see it in slow-mo on the puck, on the blade, you'll see that deflection. And as the puck loads on that blade, you'll see some blade deflection and then blade release. If you've got too much blade deflection, then you'll have an inaccurate release, and you'll lose momentum as it doesn't return to center quick enough. If you've got some torsional rigidity, you'll get the natural flexion from the subtleness of the carbon fiber, but you'll have a much quicker return to center, and that'll give you greater velocity and greater control.
So you're telling me I don't have an excuse when I'm shooting wide, when I'm shooting with the code, right?
It ain't the tools, man. It's the toolbox.
So another big change that we see in this entire line is really just the material makeup and the construction processes that you guys are using. Some really exciting and exclusive materials. So can you walk me through, just what goes through building this Code 5 and a couple of the key materials that really stand out?
Well, materials is actually pretty straightforward. We build this stick as a full 25K carbon fiber. And that 25K for us references, there are 25,000 filaments within a square inch of this. If you look at the check pattern, if you will, throughout, both you see on the blade and through the shaft, that's an outer layer of 25K carbon fiber, which for us gives us the greatest strength to weight ratio and allows us to make this stick well below 400 grams in a 60-inch length. The other benefit from that is our Featherlight XT program, which not only has 25K throughout the outer shell, but is using layers of 25K on the inner wrap as well, interior. Again, helping us reduce and helping us balance the stick much, much better. The other interesting things that we've done is we've changed the geometry in the hand and that E217 shape. If you think of the M series, which had a more rounded corner and a concave sidewall, we wanted to create a little bit taller sidewall, a little less of a concave. It still has a concave sidewall, which your fingers can slot right into for good strength and energy release, but a little sharper edge to it. So the Code 5 or the Code family will feel a little bit more square in the player's hand as opposed to a rounder feel that you had in the M series.
Right, and that totally makes sense because it's, I mean, in my opinion, it's a little more of a traditional shaft shape. But like we kind of talked about earlier, this is more of a powerful shooter. And with that larger dimension and that more squared corners, in my opinion, it gives a little bit more control that you need on those big one-timers and those big slap shots. Whereas on the Wrecker series, you can have a little more rounded for a little better, dangling, I would say, and a little bit, different of a feel. So it's cool to really see the two differences that have some, meaning behind them too.
You're absolutely right. And obviously, players are creature of habit. When you pull a stick off the wall, that feel in your hand, if it feels good to you or not. And some guys prefer to have that little sharper edge to fit in that groove of their hand, or to allow their fingers to fit into that slot as you move your bottom hand up and down. So obviously feel is a real important aspect to a player's preference on choosing a stick. So we feel that this gave us the two families, the well-established M series, which had the Genesis back in the EK365 and in the Record family, and then Code, which gives us that new introduction and allows us to broaden our reach for the players that we're working with.
And then also in the Blade 2, we kind of see a similar technology that we've seen in the Wrecker series for a little bit as far as the core goes, but I'm sure it's a little bit different than what we see there. So what can you tell me about the new Blade core on your Code 5?
So in the studies, in the analysis we've done, looking at slow-mo video and tearing other brands' blades apart and our blades apart, we wanted to see where the commonalities were, and we wanted to see what we could do to help enhance how our blade performs. And the one thing we found is the VRF blade, the traditional Sherwood blade that we've been working with for a number of years, had some great performance characteristics, but at the same time, we needed more. We needed it to feel a little bit more damp. We needed it to have a little bit better absorption, and we needed to try and reduce any torsional twisting or flexion while the puck was coming on and coming off. So what we did is we changed the foam and actually went to a new VRF HD, or vibration reduction foam HD. We increased the density. We didn't change the profile of the blade, but we ran the carbon stringer a little bit deeper to allow for a little bit more rigidity torsionally, have a little bit more jam to it actually throughout the curve, but damper on impact and on release to give it a little bit more of a smooth feel, if you will, when you take that hard pass or a one-timer, or you let it go. It just actually has a much better puck feel on it, so it's not going to give you a big shock when you take that puck on the blade.
Right. Now I sound like I'm repeating myself, but with this powerful, style of a shot, you need a softer blade core. You need a stiffer blade core so you can get that maximum velocity without compromising any of that accuracy as well. Now,
you make a great point. You make a super point, but there's that fine line you got to walk, because if you go soft, too soft, then you're actually losing energy. And that was the key for us. The whole focus has always been, how can we maximize the energy in the relation between shaft and blade and doing it without costing us anything from as far as shot velocity.
And so, I mean, this is truly a new line from top to bottom, different from anything we've seen, from Sherwood. So with all of these new key features, not everyone can afford the Code 5. So as I look at the rest of the line here, there are so many great features at each price point, for that competitive player. So what are we going to find that, starting with the Code 4, what kind of technologies are we going to find that are maybe trickling down? What's the difference between those two?
One of the things that we found in all of our analysis is that there was such a drastic drop from that elite level, that highest priced vector product in some lines, to where the affordable price point, the everyday man stick could be. And there was such a drastic drop in the technology and in some cases performance. So we tried to address that to make sure that if you were out looking at the number 2 stick in line, is that a performance level product, and are you getting the most out of it? So how can we ensure that we do that? Well, let's make sure that our kick point and our shaft dimensions are exactly the same. So the Code 4 offers the engine, if you will, is exactly the same. Our blade is 25K on the Code 5. Well, let's make sure we do that in the Code 4 as well. So now you're getting the best performance in your blade from the 5 to the 4. We know we're getting the same kick point from the 5 to the 4. We use graphene as a strength enhancer in the Code 5 to actually give us incredible durability and not cost us additional weight. Well, the 4 naturally, is a different price point, is slightly heavier. So it will move more into that range of above 400 grams, in that 420 range. So that automatically provides us durability. So the graphene is not included in the Code 4, but you have a more robust shaft from a durability standpoint. The E217 grip shape, that shaft shape, is exactly the same. And then in order to make sure we're trying to maximize our weight story and performance story, instead of 25K through the shaft as you have in Code 5, we run a 12K shaft in the Code 4. Again, reduces some of the resin required, so helps reduce some of your weight, but still gives you exceptional strength to weight ratio.
And it's pretty incredible. If you're just checking out the 4 before you checked out the 5 and you picked it up, you're like, man, this is a well-balanced stick. It feels incredibly light. And then you find out there's a whole other price point that's sub 400 grams. So all of that to say that, at 420 grams, just a couple of years ago, that would have been one of the lightest sticks on the market. But now it's available at a second price point at just a killer price. So I think that's just a great job of offering so much value for that second price point player.
One of the biggest things that we're seeing is for elite level players at pro in many leagues across the world, and actually junior hockey, elite level hockey in North America, we're seeing huge acceptance of the Code 4 from a performance standpoint, from an additional durability standpoint, and from an affordability standpoint when teams are looking at managing their budgets. So while they're not playing the Code 5, unless it's a true elite player who wants that sub 400, if he wants durability, but he still wants all of the features and benefits, they're looking at Code 4 as well. So it's amazing. We kind of have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, for sure. And then let's just finish this off. Just maybe highlight a couple key features for competitive players that are looking at the 3, the 2, and the 1. What are a couple standout features that really make those so unique and so valuable for those players shopping for a mid to low kick point stick out there?
Well, the 3 certainly is a great opportunity for us to really bring value, but still tell that hybrid kick point story. So we've managed to maintain the shaft story. We've also managed to maintain our Featherlight story, not Featherlight XT that you would see at the top end, but Featherlight refers to our proprietary layup to ensure that we're getting the maximum strength to weight ratio and a very balanced stick. If you're actually getting carried away and loading up all of your strength down just in the hosel, you can create a very unbalanced product. And the perception will be that it's super blade heavy or it feels super heavy. So the focus for us was to make sure that we create a balanced product, and Featherlight allows us to do that. The Code 3 still has the benefit of the shaft shape and the hosel dimension, giving that excellent longer lever for greater load and greater shot velocity. Obviously, as you go through price points, there are things that you include in or out as you go through the price points. But we find the 3, it gives us exceptional performance while still giving you many of the characteristics that you had in the brothers above it. The 2 is a stick that is more traditional in shaft shape, and actually it's a slightly higher kick point, as with the 1. When you get into the construction methods of all of these price points, there does become a point where you actually need to sacrifice something. And the 2 and the 1 are sticks that are very much price point sticks. They give the benefit of the wider hosel. They give the benefit of the hand shape, if you will. And then we're doing it with unidirectional carbon fiber, 12K in the 2, giving us a chance to really still reduce the weight story. But at that point, those are exceptional value sticks with great durability and cosmetics that are quite cutting edge right now to the industry.
Yeah, definitely. And the fact that the 2 has a unidirectional shaft and then a 12K, you said a 12K blade. I mean, like I said earlier, that could have been a top end stick just 5 years ago, just with, that external layer of carbon fiber. But, it's big change for sure with this year. I love the update on the graphics and, just seeing all the new exciting technologies you guys are starting to push into the secondary line, because Wrecker's been just such a strong staple. EK15 is still one of my favorite sticks of all time, but really excited to see what Sherwood has to come. But Dan, I want to say thank you so much for joining us and walking us through this full line of the new Code sticks. And then for you guys at home that want to check out more of these Sherwood Code sticks, make sure you go to icewarehouse.com.